Hello everyone. So to continue from where we were before, right? So we already have our API set up, and if we look at what has been generated, we see that it works on a module kind of level, right? Where we have our controller, which has our get, and we have the module, right, which specifies the controller, the providers, and so on. And we also have our service, which is injectable, as you can see, instead of we having to have like a DI container, like we said, and we have our main to bootstrap our application. So we can test this out, even though this is not the structure we'll be working with, by running npm start. But before we even run npm start, if we come to our package.json here, we'll see that we have several things we can do with npm for our project. Npm build, format, start dev, start prod, and so on and so forth. So let's run this npm start. So can you see now that we have our API, our project started? So, and we have a get route, we have okay. So, but this is not the structure we're going to be working with. So let's scaffold our application. Let's delete everything we have in SRC, not everything we have in SRC. Let's delete our app.controllers, app.service. Let's leave our app.module for now. We're going to work on that. So let's clear this out so that we don't have errors. Let's also clear this out. Let's clear this out. And let's clear this out for now. Yeah. So let us scaffold our entire application. So inside SRC, we'll be having a set of modules. So let's create our modules directory. Modules. And before we get into what we have in modules, let's create a domain on SRC, a domain layer. So inside domain, we are going to have our entities and we're going to have our interfaces. Entities and interfaces. So while we have entities and interfaces, we are going to have our inside modules. Let's move to our modules. We are going to have different modules, like we said in our slide. We have auth, we have users, we have product. We have others. So let's proceed. We have our auth directory. Inside modules, we also have our cart. Inside modules, we also have our others. Inside our modules, we also have products and users. Products, and we also have our users. No, that is a folder, not a file. Okay. So to proceed, inside SRC, we would also have security and utils. Inside SRC, we would also have a security folder. And we would also have in SRC, we would also have utils. Okay. So to proceed, let's now also create our tests folder, which would also be in SRC. Tests. Yeah. So in our SRC would also have where we would connect to our database. So in database, we are going to have two main files: our database factory, database.factory.ts, and would also have our database.module. Database.module.ts, yes. So then aside from that, since we are going to be like having in our domain, we are going to be having entities, and we're going to be having 4 entities in domain. So which is our cards.entity.ts. We are going to be having our other products and user, other.entity.ts. We are going to be having product and user, product.entity.ts, and we'll be having user.entity.ts. There's something worthy of note, right? We can decide to just make our entire structure, our entire file tree flat. But the thing is, it is best we start building a clean architecture mindset from the start, so that as we proceed, right, it makes working in large code bases, building large applications makes it easier for us, and it makes our code base easily maintainable over time, as opposed to just having everything everywhere. So, and we are going to have interfaces. Now, when I'm building APIs, like building APIs from a machine learning project, machine learning or AI product in Python, I create interfaces for services, repositories, and things like that. But we'll be having only interface for repository here. Why? Due to our module level of building this project, or the pattern for NestJS rather, services is not something that will be changing a lot. And the reason for interfaces is we establishing like a pattern, a foundation for something that changes over time, so that when let's say we move from Mongo to like Postgres, our interfaces ensure that everything we implement on the repository layer that we'll be doing now aligns with what we have for Mongo. So let's proceed. So we'll be having the same thing as entities, cards, other products, and user, but that would be inside the repository layer. Repository dot cards repository dot interface dot ts. So to make this no, I need to have a repository here. Repository, and this should be inside repository. Oh no, let me just delete this. Card repository. Let's just put a file here, .git keep, so we can see the tree structure. So cards repository.ts, then we have other repository.ts, then we have our product and user, product repository.ts, and we have our user repository.ts. Okay, so that is that for our interfaces repository. So we would, for authentication, we are going to like, how would I say this, to mirror every module layer to be similar. Okay, so for Auth, we are going to be having auth.controller .cs. We are going to be having cat.module.cs. .module.cs. We are going to be having cat.service for all services for cats. Cat.service.cs. We are going to be having our DTO layer inside the Auth module. DTO, and inside DTO we are going to be having add to cat.dto.cs. add to cat.dto.cs. So there is an important thing that we need to note about having DTOs in our module. A DTO in TypeScript is a class or interface that defines the shape of data being sent between different parts of an application, such as between a client and a server. So see it like maybe schemas or data models in Python, right? So why do we ensure to use DTOs, right? It ensures that the data that we are sending or receiving has an expected structure. It validates incoming data. It prevents clients from sending or receiving fields they shouldn't, and it makes code, again, easier to maintain. So aside from our Auth DTO now, we then also have our repositories layer inside Auth. Repositories. Then inside repositories, we are going to have our Mongo cat repository. Repository.cs. Then we need to have schemas too, right? So let's create a schema layer. So one might think we have DTO, which is used to validate and ensure data is consistent, and we also have schema. So the schema is a bit different as in compared to DTO. So DTO, like I said, is like how the data between your implementation relates with the client and other parts of your code base. For schema, it defines how data is stored or structured, usually in a database. So in essence, DTO, let's add like something here. So let's add the comparison. So DTO, and like we said, it is data transfer objects, and we have what here now? We have our schema. So what is the difference now is that for schema, or let's say for DTO, it's like ensure data as expected structure within let's do this, different parts of your application or code base and clients. However, for your schema, right, for your schema, it defines, no, let's expand this, defines how data is stored or structured in like a database, and like I said, it is used in cases to define database or DB structure, used for data storage, used for when reading structure for reading or writing to database. Okay, so back to our code, right? We then have like a schema. Inside schemas, we have what? We have our, or let's ignore schema for our auth for now. And we also need like a different layer. Repository. This is an error. So this should be in cat, right? I was implementing cat implementation into auth. So let's have that fixed. Yes. So move our repository into cat. Yes. Move our DTO into cat. Yeah. Okay, so in our auth, right? That was a big error. Let's create like a DTO for auth, a repositories for auth. So for our auth repositories, we are going to have, or for now, let's leave that. We are going to, like I said, we have our auth.controller.ts. We have our auth.module.ts. We are going to have our auth.service.ts. .service.ts. And like I said, for now, let's ignore schema and repositories for auth. Over time, we are going to identify if we need them or not. But DTO, we have login DTO, refresh DTO, and register DTO. Login.dto.ts. Then we have our refresh.dto.ts. Refresh.dto.ts. Then we have what? Our register.dto.ts. Register.dto.ts. So these are for like for 3 core operations: login, get our refresh, use our refresh token to get a new access token, and register. So then we have strategies for authentication. We need to have strategies for authentication. So inside strategies, we are going to have JWT refresh strategy and the normal, let's say JWT strategy dot JWT dot strategy, dot strategy dot ts, and JWT refresh strategy dot ts, JWT dot refresh dot strategy dot ts. So we have those, and let's add for our carts for now. And before our next video, I would have updated for others, products, and users. So for DTO, let's cat DTO. We have to cat DTO. For repositories, we have Mongo cat repository. For schemas, where is our schemas here? Let's create our schemas for cats. Schemas dot schemas, yeah. Then inside schemas, we have cat.schema.ts, .schema.ts, and what I'll do before our next video is to like duplicate this pipeline, DTO, repositories, schemas, duplicate for orders, products, and users. So, but before we go, right, we would need to also, or let's do it in our next video. In our next video would be accounting for our Swagger documentation setup. Thank you.